Hello and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I am Daryl Griffiths and this is my weekly 180 where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. At the end, I'll pick my favourite to review in a little more detail in the cubicle. In my SAP techie news this week, SAP Kernel Stack 7.53 pl1400 is released. This kernel stack includes an updated CommonCryptoLib version 8.5.56, which includes some important fixes for TLS 1.3. Also included are new profile parameters related to PSE assignment, some new parameter defaults for PCA and Q and GW processes. You should note that there are already some known regressions for this kernel, and I've included the relevant SAP note links in the description down below. CIO.com documents the slow decline of Atos into the red. The article notes the €1.7 billion loss for the company in the first 6 months of 2024, which is up from the €434 million loss the previous year. I couldn't help but notice that Atos is providing IT infrastructure and services for the Paris Olympics. The link to the article is down below. A second CIO.com article this time regarding a tax dispute between Infosys and the Indian state of Karnataka.
What did you say?
Karnataka, which is demanding $4 billion of tax. The article discusses the reason behind the tax charge and sets out a potential tax implication for other multinational IT providers that drive international projects from Indian-based business units. India's IT body, the National Association of Software and Service Companies, NASSCOM, points out that this is an industry-wide issue and multiple companies are facing avoidable litigation, uncertainty and concerns from investors and customers. See more details in the article using the link below. An article on the Register about the cybersecurity company Wiz and its security disclosure known as SAP, whereby it was able to exploit a chain of weaknesses to gain significant access to SAP's internal network directly via the SAP AI Core product. Details from Wiz were provided at the annual Black Hat Cybersecurity Conference and include an overview of how simple it was to gain entry to the internal network, which also gave them access to AWS-hosted data that included an AWS EFS file share containing customers' training data, software builds, and images. The article also details how Wiz explained that it would have been trivial to replace build images with malicious versions and therefore conduct a supply chain attack. SAP HANA 2 SPS05 revision 59 maintenance release 14 has been released. This maintenance revision includes, but not limited to, a new backint related parameter, fixes for Graph Engine, HA, Live Cache, SDA, SDI, and a number of general stability issues. The note is included down below. On the Australian SAP news site is an article emphasising the importance of a data strategy when considering AI adoption. The product, SimpleMDG, is highlighted as an easy-to-use master data governance tool that can help to improve data accuracy, consistency and reliability, which in turn leads to better and more high-quality outcomes from AI-enhanced decisions. There's a white paper available at the end of the article. Finally this week, Business Wire has an article on security tool vendor CyberArk announcing that SAP Enterprise Cloud Services, ECS, will implement CyberArk. ECS is the supporting team behind SAP's services like SAP HEC and Rise with SAP. The article talks about zero standing privileges, which means that there are no privileged access rights provisioned to accounts. Instead, operators use CyberArk to check out an account just in time, with the subsequent usage being completely auditable. Having used CyberArk in the past, I can confirm it works pretty well for providing secure access to things like server command line consoles from a single web-based console. My favourite item this week is the SAP Kernel 7.53 Stack Level 1400. Now you're probably wondering what could have possibly sparked my interest in this kernel stack. It's just a normal kernel stack, right? Yes, it is. Actually, this kernel stack level caught my eye because of one item mentioned in the SAP note for it. It mentions that with this stack level, or rather with the patch level 1311, which is rolled into this stack level, the 7.53 kernel now supports AWS IMDSv2. For those not familiar with AWS or with public cloud virtual machines, IMDS stands for Instance Metadata Service and is AWS's method of supplying details about the running virtual machine instance to software operating within the virtual machine. There's something similar in Azure and also GCP. Since the dawn of virtual machines, SAP has had a never-ending problem of how to adequately protect software that is installed from software piracy. When you install a NetWeaver or ABAP platform-based SAP system, such as SAP ERP or S4HANA, you get a temporary license that lasts a number of days. I think from memory it's something like 28 days. I don't remember exactly. Let me know in the comments how wrong I am. When the temporary license expires, the SAP system will shut down. To prevent this, a basis administrator normally needs to log into the SAP support portal and generate a valid license key. As an input to that process, the basis administrator needs to generate the unique hardware key on the virtual machine where the SAP system has been installed. In the old days, on physical servers, this hardware key was generated from a hash of certain machine-specific information, such as the network interface card MAC address. If you know anything about Ethernet, that's right, the thing that allows TCP/IP to work, then you know that each network card in a machine has a unique address. It's kind of like your postal address or your email address. It only works because it's unique. When virtual machines came along, it was trivial to spoof the MAC address to make it something that already existed somewhere else. This had implications for SAP hardware keys, because you could have an SAP license generated for one machine using that machine's hardware key, but then spoof that on a virtual machine and install SAP onto that virtual machine, running more than one SAP system from the same license. Naughty, naughty. To prevent this from happening, SAP had to change their hardware key generating hashing mechanism to use something else other than MAC address, since this was no longer unique. So if we think what else is unique on a physical server,
so what is it?
We might think about the main motherboard, the CPU, other hardware components that come with IDs, which when combined with the MAC address would make it harder to spoof in a virtual machine, because some of those IDs in a virtual machine are not adjustable easily without recompiling what is known as the hypervisor that surrounds the virtual machine. In public cloud, Azure, AWS, and GCP all provide a nice unique ID which SAP uses to generate the hardware key. This ID is obtained from a call to the Local Instance Metadata Service, IMDS, in AWS, or the equivalent service in Azure and GCP. To be able to make that call, the SAP executable binary that generates the hardware key has to know which public cloud vendor it's running on, then how to make the call to the IMDS to get the unique ID. All of this information is hard-coded into the executable binary file, which comes as part of the SAP kernel. The same set of code is used to generate the check value to check that the license key that has been installed into the SAP system is valid. Looping back to the beginning, SAP Kernel 7.53 now supports IMDS version 2, which provides a new, more secure method of obtaining this unique ID. Interestingly, the AWS documentation say that you can use IMDSv2 only once you stop using IMDSv1. Now we understand the significance of IMDSv2 to being able to run a licensed SAP system, my thoughts turn to the what if. What if AWS decided to deprecate IMDSv1? That would leave any SAP system that was not on a new kernel unable to check the license, and the SAP system would be shut down. AWS explicitly say that they will continue to support IMDSv1 in the documentation, but I don't think personally that this will be indefinite. If I was AWS, I would deprecate it once any supported software no longer uses it, with the key word being supported. SAP Business Suite 7 ends standard support in 2027 and extended support in 2030. There will be customers paying for personal extended support or whatever you might want to call that, but on the whole, the supported aspect finishes in 2030. Could this be a point in time when AWS could safely reverse position and deprecate IMDSv1? There will be companies hoping to run their archive SAP systems for many years in public cloud, but as I've just pointed out, the intertwining of hypervisor, virtual machine and SAP software is not as neatly segregated as it first seems. Running an archive system on old hardware, on-premise, has no real equivalence in the public cloud. There are many agents and other bits of software that will cease to work on old virtual machines, which may mean the virtual machine itself will not work. As always, reference links are in the description down below. Drop me a comment, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.